Welcome to the Movers and Shakers podcast by Simon Akers. In this episode, we sit down with Chris Hyde to talk about apprenticeships in the furniture industry. Chris explains how training for apprentices under 21 is now fully subsidized, making it easier than ever to gain valuable skills. We discuss what makes a great apprenticeship experience, from learning the craft to reflecting on your work, and explore the benefits of joining industry networks for mentoring, idea sharing, and career growth. We even wrap up with a fun chat about local brews. And this episode is sponsored by BKU Magazine, the leading publication keeping KBB professionals informed, inspired, and connected.
So we're here at Furniture Makers Hall in London with Chris Hyde. Hi Chris, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Perfect, yeah. So we're all about understanding more about how to hire apprentices and talking about potential barriers that people would come up against, Chris. Okay. And firstly, can we just ask about you in terms of your career, but very briefly?
Certainly. So I started out by growing up in a family retail firm. I went to college, I won the Prince of Wales Award for Rural Crafts. That got me interested in furniture. I trained at Rycott Wood in Tame, and then I went out into industry and I did contract furniture and antique restoration. So a kind of educationalist, specialist as a furniture maker and antique restorer.
Yeah, what was the catalyst that got you into the education element?
I liked sharing my skills. I'd done a little bit of volunteering work as a youth worker. So I thought, well, how can I combine what I know as a skill into helping others? So I was really keen to serve and support others and to encourage others into the industry.
That's a passion.
It's a real passion. It is the driver. More than anything else, it's the driver of seeing young people and those who are returning into the industry or reskilling just to be the best version of themselves, really.
And I think before we start the structured questions, we should ask you about the Royal Household, Chris. So do you want to explain what you're doing this weekend?
Yes, just been to a garden party at Buckingham Palace and was very honoured to be presented to His Majesty the King, and with my wife there, Sarah, as well. And we had a really great time. It was beautiful, and the King was lovely. We spoke about heritage crafts, and we spoke about apprenticeships, and we spoke about the need for having people come into this industry and how important it was.
Right, lovely. And was there anything you took away from that conversation that was a word of encouragement?
Well, I think it's very special when anyone says thank you, but particularly the King. And I think that sort of really helps that, you know, this passion I have about serving and supporting others is just really important going forward.
Fantastic. So the first question, Chris, is do you have an example or a story or a circumstance where you've witnessed somebody hire an apprentice or a business and how that was good, bad or indifferent that we could all learn from?
I think some of the best examples that I've seen, and I think of one in particular, is where it was a very supportive process for all those applying for an apprentice at a company. And I think often what happens is that this swells a lot of interest in young people in how they can get a job and learn and be paid. But of course, there's going to be disappointments as well. And I think the best examples I've seen is where everybody is supported in the process for those who are successful and those who aren't. And those who aren't having clear direction of where else they could go for now. So it doesn't stop or give them a full stop in their career.
Yeah, so I guess what we're saying there is the word support is what's expected from the apprentice, but also the training provider and the employer. So how does it all link together? That's what you're suggesting, that's the success of an apprentice.
That's right. It's everyone being supportive. You know, it's not about taking an apprentice on because it's cheap. And we just need someone for X time and we don't really care about their future. It's thinking about it more long term.
So what advice have you got in terms of how would you select a training provider in your given area?
I think there are many training providers in certain sectors, and it has to work to the employer, to the organisation. So what I mean by that is that there's various routes. It could be a day release, it could be block release. You have to have a good working relationship with the training provider, and it has to fit to the young person as well. And that way, the thing will work. When there's rub, when there's things like they can't come to be released for off-their-job training because we're busy,
right,
and therefore they can't come, that's when it starts to fall down a bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. So where would somebody find out about their nearest training? Where's the reference to find that out, Chris?
So the government have an apprenticeship website as a kind of go-to. Various furniture agents have links as well. And then we have something here at Furniture Makers Hall called My Furniture Career. And that's a kind of signposter to why don't you try here and try that.
So myfurniturecareer.co.uk will give you a reference to different jobs or different opportunities within the sector, but also about apprenticeships too.
That's right. Yes, right. Yes, and we linked up really closely with the trade body Fiesta.
Yes,
where we're working closely to make sure that any apprentice that is looking for a job can find something.
Yeah, in terms of how to hire, there's a big thing for me actually where people get sent a link or they get a reference and they go to it. But I would suggest, and I'd be really keen to hear your thoughts, Chris, whether there's something else that we could do as an industry to support, go back to your word, on how we can almost handhold someone through the process. What are your thoughts on that?
I think we certainly need to handhold. It's no good just saying, I'll go over there, you'll find it somewhere. It has to be clear, it has to be supportive, and there's almost a coaching element as the young person explores and sort of works out what it is they want to do. So I think that's really important.
So how does Furniture Makers Worshipful Company do support in terms of handholding? What can the company offer?
So we offer various experiences. So we have competitions where we have a big exhibition at the end of the year in October. And with that, what happens is we can put on awards for apprenticeships. And then we also have things like where we can signpost. We can call Fiesta, we can put the word out into the industry and say, okay, someone's called, they're looking for this, who's got something available?
Yeah, so somebody or an SME could call into, if they're in the furnishing industry, call here, and could they speak to somebody?
Yes, we have an education manager here, and they can speak to them. What happens is that often the call comes in and then it will go out to one of the members of the Education Training Committee, which I chair, and we can find someone that's relevant to have the chat.
I think that's just it. If there's some kind of one-to-one support in terms of your word signposting, I think that's got to make a difference. I mean, I've had experience of looking at the .gov website where you have to complete certain sections on, let's say, creating an account, and a lot of people will probably get quite bemused or they would be unsure about it and click off. Sure. So I don't know whether there's anything, perhaps any solutions, Chris, that you could think of. And I understand training providers can be quite helpful in the application process. Would that be correct?
No, I think you're right, Simon. I think that is the best way it works. I mean, we're a very friendly industry, and if everyone is supporting, then that will help close the skill gap that we have for trying to find these people. I think one of the barriers we do have is that people have to accept that apprentices aren't going to make a lot of money initially. But if we can train and overtrain and oversupply the demand, then that actually will help us going forward for the industry to actually have the right people in the right place for the industry.
Yeah, that's a good point. And just playing devil's advocate, so some of the employers that I would speak to, Chris, would say, well, Simon, who's going to pay for their mistakes? And I'll train somebody up and they'll end up leaving and become a competitor. How would you get over those objections, Chris?
Well, I think that's exactly where we are. I think you have to train and you have to educate people in order for them to move on. I mean, if not, it's almost slavery of I'll train you, but you have to stay with me forever. That's just not the way that the world works. But one of the key things in my sort of education career is that if I can unlock the potential of an apprentice and they will go on and do great and better things, then they don't need to stay with me. Whether I'm an employer or whether I run a certain educational establishment, they have to have wings, they have to move on and become who they really need to be in their own world, because that will benefit the industry as a whole. Yeah.
Yes, almost like it's a corporate responsibility for the industry that we're basically working towards a better future.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And it protects everyone. It protects everyone. In the past, I've trained thousands of apprentices in all various places of the furniture industry. And it's really exciting to see where they go, whether they stay with a company and move on up, or whether they go to a different company. And often this is all about relationships. It's all about how you look after staff. If someone is leaving, then you have to ask the question, why are they leaving after I've invested?
Well, exactly that point. So looking at the national statistics, I understand that it's actually improved. So there's a 60% retention rate compared to last year's 50%. So what can an employer do to ensure that an apprentice does actually stay and has a decent career?
I think they have to tune in to, certainly for young people, what is going on in their lives and what's important to them. And we do see different change in values of how people want to work and why they want to work. And they need to feel appreciated.
Right.
So that's one thing. So make sure that you look after them and say thank you and tell them.
Back to basics.
It's back to basics, And if there is a need for improving, then let's not do it the old-fashioned way of throwing their work in the bin. Let's encourage them in a different way. So they can learn and they can see, because sometimes they don't know what excellence is, and they have to be guided in that way on if they're going to master a skill.
Should an apprentice just be paid the bare minimum wage for an apprentice of their age? And what advice would you have on that subject, Chris?
I think that's quite an individual question for companies, but I think if you're going to pay a minimum wage, what else are you going to do to make them stay? Because if you're going to pay a minimum wage, don't be surprised when they go. So what is the extra benefit that they will have working in your company?
Yeah.
What are you doing? How are you coaching them?
Yeah.
Do they feel like that, regardless of the ages in the company, do they actually feel like they belong?
Yeah.
Can they see what their progression is?
Yeah.
Do they know that actually if they, after training, there might be something else, whether that is a rise or whether that is another endorsement?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know whether you agree, Chris, but if somebody's joining as an apprentice, they're on a pathway for a proper qualification. I think a lot of people miss that word off, qualification. So in my mind, if somebody, as you say, has the right understanding from both sides and they're appreciated, actually would tie somebody in terms of retention a lot longer because they've got a qualification towards the end. And perhaps someone just passed their probation thinking, do I want to stay here? Would you agree with that?
Yes, I think often we see come and work for us on our apprentice scheme, which doesn't have a formal qualification. We know that certain young people want the formal qualification. That is the way they're wired through their early education at school.
Yeah.
So they want something that's going to be invested out of it.
Sure. And talking about young people there. So, I mean, the North American market is very different from the UK market, where they typically have an apprentice that's been working there for a number of years. They're upskilling, and this market seems to focus more on young people coming into the industry. So, what do you think we should do? Should we do, or should we reconsider a mix of both, or we should keep with the current strategy?
I think it's a mix of both, because I think people come to this industry at various points of their lives, and therefore if they do decide that they find something of the furniture industry which is a very exciting place to be, but they've done other things, then actually they shouldn't be penalised because they're older and they're changing career. So I think there has to be a place, and there is a place in the industry at all levels, and whether they're starting young or whether they are enhancing their skills as well.
Okay, so from the government's point of view, it doesn't matter what the government is, but it seems to me over the years that there's been a situation where it's somewhat confusing in terms of what the actual contributions are. So I don't know what you think, Chris, but if there was a situation where somebody advertised, or an organisation advertised it's free training, and that was the headline, do you think that'd get more of an uptake on apprenticeship interest?
I'm not sure, because I think sometimes free training also sounds as being cheap and not very good.
Interesting.
But it could work. It could work. I mean, there is some good financial offsets for employers who want to take on an apprentice. And certainly what we see with apprentices, and I now work for World Skills UK,
yes.
But we know that the more successful members who enter going into Squad UK, into the international competition, and taking part with representing the UK with other countries, generally come from the apprentice world.
Yes.
And they have this kind of balance of skills and knowledge and behaviours, which helps them be grounded in the way that they can work under pressure.
Yeah. But on that subject, specifically about free training, so I think if we were just to confirm, it would really help the people watching. So what is the cost for a non-levy payer for the actual training course then, Chris?
So the cost for training is free, which is great.
And I think that's what people should hear, Chris,
Absolutely. There's not a catch here.
No.
You can have this free training, for all the opportunities that it can bring.
So I'll be saying that if you're an apprentice under 21, the actual course costs, where it used to be 95% subsidised, is now 100% subsidised?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And that's a win-win for everybody.
So the employer's obligation is to pay the wage which there's set out as there's minimum payments for certain ages of apprentices. And if somebody wants to pay more, that's up to them on an individual basis, you were saying there. But I guess they've got to appreciate there's an academic side of that. So they have to be released for, is it 20% of the time for that qualification, Chris? Yeah?
That's right. Yeah, 20% off the job training. And actually that's really important, because often with learning a craft skill, learning whether you're going into kitchens or any of the sectors of the furniture industry, which is quite wide, you've got to make sure that you can go into it knowing that you have to reflect at certain times, because you can't just make and make and make, or fit and fit and fit. You have to stop and reflect, because that's how learning happens.
Yeah. So if we were rewriting the book and we had a blank piece of paper in front of us, what are the three things with your experience that you might want to review?
I think really make sure that what you are designing in their plan will work.
This is the actual standard.
The actual delivery of the apprenticeship.
Delivery, that's the training of the criteria.
That's right.
Right.
So that the apprentice has a really good experience of what the company is, and not really narrow.
Yeah.
But if they are specialising in a certain thing, that they get to understand, so how does it work with the marketing? How does it work with other aspects as well? Because they need to know how they fit into that sort of company.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, that's really useful information. So, quick shameful plug. So we're going to have a quick chat about why somebody should consider working with or joining the Furniture Makers Company, Chris. So if I asked you for a paragraph of why someone should get involved, what would you say?
I would say that it's great for networking. Okay. It's really good for networking. It helps you broaden your understanding. It helps in the kind of way that you can sort of have that kind of mentoring and be coached by others in your thinking. And often that's quite tricky, particularly if you're in education, training environments. Who else do you talk to? If your environment's quite small. And there's lots of other sort of social opportunities and events that happen.
Right, yeah. So if someone wants to give back to the industry, which clearly you do, Chris, then you're going to also learn more about what everybody else is doing, so you can be a better advisor.
That's right, yes. And also you can it helps with idea forming as well, because you know then what others can bring and how that might help those who want to go down that apprentice route. And
last question, bit of fun. Go into a bar, Chris. Are you a lager, bitter, or a wine man?
I'm actually ale. I'm ale,
So
but wine. Ale, yeah.
That's your first choice, yeah?
That's my first choice. Yeah, some sort of a local brew.
I 100% agree with that. You're going to go to a new pub in a new area. You don't have the standard, do you? You have what's different in that local area.
Absolutely.
I agree with you there, mate. So, Chris Hyde, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for watching this edition of Movers and Shakers, all about apprenticeships from the Furniture Makers Hall in London. If you've liked what you've watched, you can press the bell icon on YouTube and you'll receive future notifications. We're also now on Spotify and Apple podcast platforms, so please follow and we look forward to seeing you soon.